You hear about crusaders riding into the Holy Land, knights taking Jerusalem, battles against Saladin. But there was another crusade nobody talks about, one that turned Christian against Christian, where the Pope blessed French armies to slaughter their own. And on September 12th, 1213, outside a small town 25 kilometers south of Toulouse, 900 mounted crusaders faced an army that outnumbered them anywhere from 5 to 1 up to 20 to 1, depending on who you believe. The Allied force had a king who'd just crushed the Moors, thousands of militia, cavalry from multiple counties. The Crusaders had Simon de Montfort, a commander so ruthless he'd burn 140 people alive for refusing to convert, and so tactical he'd just spent 4 years carving through southern France like a scalpel. What happens when outnumbered cavalry charges a stationary army? How does a king die in plain armor screaming his own title? Why does this battle erase Aragonese power north of the Pyrenees forever? The town is Muret. The crusade is Albigensian. The outcome rewrites the map of medieval Europe. If you value documented medieval battlefield history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Pierre de Vaux de Cernay's Historia Albigensis, written between 1212 and 1218, a Cistercian monk who traveled with the crusade and witnessed events firsthand, translated by W.A. Sibley, an M.D. Sibley in 1998, and Lawrence Marvin's The Occitan War, published by Cambridge University Press in 2009, along with Spanish historian Martín Alvira Cabrer's El Jueves de Muret, published by Universitat de Barcelona in 2002. These aren't surface sources. Alvira Caber spent years in Catalan archives reconstructing troop movements. Marvin Cross referenced chronicle accounts with Ferdinand Lott's demographic work. Now back to the information. Build castles. Trade with the Mediterranean. And a chunk of them follow Catharism, a Christian sect that says matter is evil, the Catholic Church is corrupt, and you don't need priests to reach God. Rome calls them heretics. Pope Innocent III sends preachers. They get ignored. In 1208, a papal legate named Pierre de Castelnau is murdered near Saint-Gilles on the lands of Raymond VI, Count of Toulouse. The Pope accuses Raymond, excommunicates him, then calls for crusade, not against Muslims, against Christians, against Cathars, against anyone who protects them. He offers the lands of the heretics to any French nobleman willing to take up arms. By mid-1209, around 10,000 crusaders gather in Lyon. Most serve 40 days, then leave. A corps stays, they march south. The crusaders arrive at Béziers in blazing summer heat. Population 20,000, Catholics and Cathars mixed. The town refuses to surrender. The crusaders breach the walls. Papal legate Arnaud Amaury, abbot of Citeaux, allegedly says, "Kill them all, God will recognize his own." They slaughter the entire town. Thousands die in the Cathedral of Saint-Nazaire when it's set on fire. More are butchered in the Église de la Madeleine. By August 1st, they're at Carcassonne. They cut the water supply in 6 days. Raymond Roger Trencavel, the Viscount, tries to negotiate under truce. He's taken prisoner. Carcassonne surrenders August 15th. The people are expelled naked or in their undergarments, depending on the source. Raymond Roger dies weeks later, maybe dysentery, maybe poison. Simon de Montfort, a French nobleman who'd fought in the Fourth Crusade, then abandoned it when it turned against Christians, is elected leader. He's granted control of Carcassonne, Albi, and Béziers. Lord of Montfort-l'Amaury, near Paris, Earl of Leicester in England from 1204, son of Simon and Amicia de Beaumont, born around 1175, married to Alice de Montmorency in 1190, a warrior monk with land hunger. He knows siegecraft. He captures Minerve in 1210, burns 140 Cathars who refuse to recant. At Bram, he takes prisoners, gouges their eyes, cuts off ears, noses, lips, leaves one man with a single eye to lead them into the next town as warning. In September 1211, at Castelnaudary, Raymond of Toulouse attacks him during siege. Crusader reinforcements arrive barely in time. Montfort breaks free. By early 1212, he's circling Toulouse. In September 1212, he takes Muret, a fortified town on the Garonne River. He's squeezing Raymond. He's attacking lands of the Count of Foix and the Count of Comminges. Both are vassals of King Peter II of Aragon. Raymond VI is Peter's brother-in-law, married to Peter's sister Eleanor in 1204. Peter feels the walls closing. King of Aragon and Count of Barcelona from 1196. Born July 1178 in Huesca, son of Alfonso II and Sancha of Castile. In 1204, he marries Marie of Montpellier, gaining Montpellier and extending Aragonese power in southern France. In 1205, he's crowned in Rome by Pope Innocent III, acknowledging papal supremacy and swearing to defend the faith. First Aragonese king crowned by a pope. He gets the epithet the Catholic. July 16th, 1212, he fights at Las Navas de Tolosa alongside Alfonso VIII of Castile. They crush the Almohad Moors. It's the turning point of Arab domination in Iberia. Peter returns home a hero of Christendom, favored son of the Church. Peter finds Simon de Montfort has conquered more territory, exiling Raymond VI. Peter's vassals are under attack. His brother-in-law is dispossessed. His influence north of the Pyrenees is evaporating. In January 1213, Raymond and his vassals give Peter homage. Peter places all threatened territories under his protection. Southern France now escapes French suzerainty. It's under Aragon. The Pope sides with Montfort at the Council of Lavore. Peter isn't allowed to speak, only submit written argument. Peter revokes his protection of Montfort, gives protection to Toulouse, summons his army. Peter is joined by Raymond VI of Toulouse, the Count of Foix, the Count of Comminges, and militia from Toulouse. Montfort is inside Muret with a skeleton force. His main troops are elsewhere. He's riding to Muret with reinforcements when word reaches him. 40-day Crusaders have mostly left. He gathers what he can. Spencer Tucker gives 700 infantry and 900 cavalry, 1,600 men. DK estimates 1,200 infantry, 900 cavalry, 2,100 men. The consensus, Montfort has around 900 cavalry, including 260 knights, and between 300 and 700 infantry, who stay inside Muret to hold the town and tie down the Toulouse militia besieging it. So Montfort rides out with 900 horsemen. Peter's numbers are contested because Pierre de Vaux de Cernay, the primary contemporary chronicler, claims 100,000 men and 20,000 casualties, which is impossible. Marvin, using Lot and Elvira Caber, estimates Peter brought 800 to 1,000 Aragonese cavalry, plus 2,000 to 4,000 Toulouse militia, infantry plus cavalry from Foix and Comminges. Total, 2,000 to 4,000 cavalry, 2,000 to 4,000 infantry, 4,000 to 8,000 men overall. Clifford Rogers agrees. Charles Oman says 1,900 to 2,100 horsemen and 15,000 to 20,000 infantry, mostly Toulousan Burgess militia with levies from across Languedoc. Spencer Tucker suggests if Montfort's 3rd Division had 300 men and the first two had 600, and they were outnumbered 30 to 1, Peter had 18,000 total. The range. Peter has somewhere between 4,000 and 20,000 men. Montfort has 900 cavalry riding out. The Allies outnumber him at minimum 5 to 1, possibly 20 to 1. The Toulouse militia establishes siege lines around Muret's northern gate. They assault the walls. Inside Muret, Montfort receives news of Peter's arrival. Negotiations open September 11th. Montfort's bishops talk to Peter. The northern Toulouse gate near the Aragonese camp is left open, some say by design, some by mistake. The Count of Foix rushes it with the vanguard, aided by Raymond's foot soldiers. They try to force the narrow luge bridge. A few get in. They're surrounded, outnumbered, killed. Foix withdraws to eat. He divides his 900 cavalry into 3 lines. His half-brother William of Bars commands the first line. A second line follows. Montfort himself commands the 3rd line. 300 men for tactical control. Morning of September 12th. Montfort leads his cavalry out the southern Sales Gate, away from Peter's camp, hidden by Muret's walls. They ride along the Garonne, then circle north out of sight. Peter disguises himself in borrowed plain armor in the second line. Some sources say he wanted to fight without the burden of being targeted as king. Others say it was chivalric bravado. Raymond VI advises Peter to use a defensive posture, weaken the advancing Crusaders with arrows and javelins, fight a war of attrition. Peter rejects it as unknightly and dishonorable. He wants a pitched battle. His army remains stationary. They wait for the Crusaders. William of Bars and the 1st Crusader line cross a stream, likely the Luge. They charge straight at the center of the Count of Foix's line. The 2nd Crusader line follows tight behind. The Spaniards are mesmerized by advancing banners. Lords call for horses. Mounted men struggle to find position. The impact scatters Foix's division like dust before wind, Peter of Les Vaux de Cernay's phrase. The 1st Allied line is crushed by the momentum. The Crusaders break through to the 2nd line. Simultaneously, Montfort with his 3rd line circles wide left, hidden by terrain or dust, and crashes into the Allied cavalry's flank. The Aragonese are caught in chaos, 2nd line colliding with retreating 1st line, Crusaders hitting front and side. He's wearing plain armor. He fights hard. Sources diverge on the exact moment. One version, he's unhorsed early, shouts, "I am the king," but isn't heard over battle noise, and is killed. Another version from Spanish chronicler Ramon Muntaner. The Crusaders recognize the threat of the Aragonese 2nd line, drive straight for Peter's standard, and kill him deliberately. Either way, Peter II, King of Aragon, hero of Las Navas de Tolosa, crowned by the Pope, dies on the field. A lance or sword blow, thrown to the ground, killed. The fleeing cavalry puts up no fight. The entire phase lasts around 20 minutes, from first charge to rout. They flee their fortified camp toward the Garonne River. They're slaughtered in the rout, thousands drown trying to cross, others are cut down. Pierre Devaux de Cernay claims 20,000 Allied dead. Modern estimates vary, but agree casualties were catastrophic for the Allies, negligible for the Crusaders. Oman and others suggest several thousand militia died in the river flight alone. The field is covered with bodies. Peter's corpse is recovered days later. His body is taken to the hospitaller priory of Sigena, founded by his mother in 1188. He's buried there. Aragon withdraws south of the Pyrenees. Raymond VI loses papal support permanently. In November 1215, at the Fourth Lateran Council, Pope Innocent III confirms Simon de Montfort as Count of Toulouse and Lord of conquered territories. Montfort is at the height of his power. Viscount of Albi, Béziers, Carcassonne from 1213, Count of Toulouse from 1215. The northern French crown gains a path into southern France. The Capetian monarchy starts its southern expansion. The culture of Languedoc, the Occitan language, the troubadour tradition, all begin their decline under northern French control. We're covering medieval battles the way they actually happened, not Hollywood versions. Now back to the aftermath. He fights across Raymond's former lands for 2 years. He makes enemies. Local lords switch sides constantly. He responds with executions and mutilations. In 1219, Prince Louis, future Louis VIII, joins the crusade. They slaughter the population at Marmande, then besiege Toulouse in June. The city resists. 45 days later, Louis returns to Paris. Raymond VII, son of Raymond VI, starts winning territory back. A stone launched from a defensive mangonel strikes his helmet. The chroniclers say it smashes his eyes, brain, teeth, forehead into pieces. He falls bloody and black. The wolf is dead. Montfort, the man who won Muret, dies like any soldier under siege. His son, Amaury de Montfort, inherits the claim but can't hold it. In January 1224, he offers truce and cedes all territories to Louis VIII. The crusade continues under direct French royal control. It drags until 1229 when the Treaty of Paris officially ends it. Languedoc is annexed to France. The Cathars are hunted down. The last fortress, Caribus, falls in August 1255. Survivors are burned. The region is transformed. Charles Oman, in 1925, calls it the most remarkable triumph ever won by a force entirely composed of cavalry over an enemy using horse and foot. It's compared to Hastings and Bouvines. Historians debate why Peter lost, poor coordination between Peter and Raymond, Peter's rejection of defensive tactics, the Allied army being caught, disorganized, possibly eating when Montfort struck, Montfort's use of terrain and surprise, the shock value of heavy cavalry charge, the psychological impact of killing the king, the militia's lack of combat experience compared to Crusader veterans. Every factor compounds. Montfort uses the southern gate to exit unseen, circles wide using the town walls as screen, forded the Luge, and hit the Allied flank while they were focused on the frontal charge from bars. It's a double envelopment in spirit, if not by the book. First line fixes, third line flanks. Second line reinforces, simple, brutal, effective. They knew formation. They trusted Montfort. The Aragonese cavalry were quality too, 800 to 1,000 mounted men who'd fought at Las Navas. But they were caught static, waiting, and hit while disorganized. The Toulouse militia were burgesses, tradesmen, levies. Good for siege work, not field battles. When they saw their cavalry routed and the king dead, they ran. If Peter wore royal armor, he might have been captured for ransom instead of killed. Medieval warfare has rules about ransoming nobles. But Peter fought as a common knight and died as one. His shout, "I am the king," came too late. The Crusaders either didn't hear or didn't care in the chaos. The broader crusade, from 1209 to 1229, 20 years, tens of thousands dead. Béziers, Carcassonne, Minerve, Lavaur, Toulouse, countless villages. The Cathars are systematically exterminated. The Inquisition is established in 1233 to root out remaining heretics. Torture becomes standard procedure. The Dominican order, founded by Saint Dominic, who prayed the rosary during Muret, according to legend, becomes the church's primary weapon against heresy. The Languedoc's distinct culture is suppressed. Occitan language declines. The troubadours scatter. Power centralizes in Paris. The Capetian monarchy absorbs the south. Modern historians like Lawrence Marvin, Jonathan Sumption in the Albigensian Crusade, published 2000, and Martin Elvira Cabrera in Muret, 1213. La Battaglia Decisiva, published 2008, all emphasize Muret as the turning point. Before Muret, the outcome was uncertain. Southern lords could rally around Raymond and Peter. Aragon had clout. After Muret, resistance is doomed. The French crown has momentum. The Pope backs Montfort until Montfort's greed becomes too obvious even for Rome. Historian H.J. Chaytor calls the later Aragonese Crusade of 1284 perhaps the most unjust, unnecessary, calamitous enterprise ever undertaken by the Capetian monarchy. But Muret in 1213 made French expansion into the south inevitable. His tomb was there for centuries. During the Spanish Civil War in 1936, the priory was damaged, archives burned, art destroyed. Peter's remains survived in a side chapel. In 1994, they were moved to the monastery of Poblet in Catalonia. Today you can see the tomb of Peter II, Père el Catholic, the king who crushed the Moors and died fighting French Crusaders in a borrowed suit of armor. Raymond VI never recovers. He's excommunicated again, stripped of lands, dies in exile. Raymond VII fights longer, wins temporary victories, but ultimately surrenders in 1229. His daughter marries Alphonse of Poitiers, brother of Louis IX. Toulouse passes to the French crown through marriage, clean annexation. He's partisan, pro-Crusader, but he was there. He witnessed Montfort's campaigns from 1210 onward. His uncle Guy was Bishop of Carcassonne from 1212. Peter traveled with his uncle, saw sieges, knew the commanders. His chronicle ends around 1218 with Montfort's death. The Historia Albigensis was written between 1212 and 1218. It's translated into English by W.A. Sibley and M.D. Sibley, published by Boydell and Brewer in 1998. The translation includes extensive footnotes, appendices on fortifications, warfare, papal policy. It's the foundation source for Albigensian Crusade studies. Then there's the Chanson de la Croisade Albigeoise, a poem in two parts, first part by Guillaume de Tudel praising the Crusade, second part by an anonymous continuator sympathetic to the southern cause. It gives cultural texture. Ramon Montaner, Catalan chronicler, writes in the early 1300s about Aragonese history, including Peter's death. All these sources cross-check. The Saudron is a small stream now. In 2013, the 800th anniversary, there was a reenactment and academic conference. Historians gathered to reassess. Martin Alvira Cabrera presented findings from Catalan and Aragonese archives. The Journal of Medieval Iberian Studies published papers on Las Navas and Muret together, the twin peaks of Peter's reign. One triumph, one disaster. The battle site has markers. Occitan inscription. This monument commemorates the Battle of Muret and Pedro of Aragon and Castile, who died defending our liberty 1213. Local memory preserves the Allied perspective. Northern French sources call him a hero, defender of the faith, martyr killed crushing heresy. Southern sources call him a butcher, conqueror, destroyer of culture. Modern scholarship sees him as both, a talented commander, brave, ruthless, effective at siege warfare and tactical maneuvering. Also cruel, land-hungry, willing to massacre civilians. His victory at Muret is studied in military academies as an example of using mobility and morale shock to overcome numerical disadvantage. His death at Toulouse is ironic, killed by the same siege weapons he'd used for years. 900 Crusaders, 4,000 to 18,000 allies, depending on source. Let's take the conservative middle, 900 versus 8,000, about 9 to 1. The Crusaders had better armor, better horses, better cohesion, but better leadership. The Allies had numbers, defensive position, a victorious king. It should have been a siege or a grinding defensive battle. Instead, it's a 20-minute rout. Montfort risks everything on a single cavalry charge. It works because Peter rejects defensive tactics, because the Allies are caught disorganized, because the king dies. Counterfactuals are speculation, but historians agree Peter's death was the hinge. James I, his son, becomes one of the great medieval kings. James the Conqueror expands Aragon and Iberia, takes the Balearics, Valencia, but he never pushes north. Muret closes that door. Southern France is French from 1213 onward. The Church gains the Inquisitor's manual, torture protocols, confession procedures. Dominicans and Franciscans become enforcers. The Albigensian Crusade is the prototype for later internal crusades, against Hussites in Bohemia, against Protestants. The model: declare heresy, call crusade, offer land to nobles, slaughter until submission. Muret proves it works. Later sources say Montfort had 870 or 700 or 900, depending on manuscript. The number doesn't matter as much as the ratio. Small force, big army, decisive victory. It's Agincourt before Agincourt. Gaugamela for medievalists. The underdog triumph that reshapes everything. The second line pours through. Then from the left, Montfort's third line appears out of nowhere, 300 knights wheeling into the flank. The Aragonese cavalry tries to form, too late. They're hit from two directions. King Peter is in the second line fighting. Lances stab, swords swing. Men fall. Peter goes down. Someone strikes the killing blow. The word spreads in seconds. The king is dead. The line breaks. Men turn their horses. The rout begins, Montfort's cavalry pursues, cuts down fleeing men, drives them toward the river. The Toulouse militia sees the disaster. They abandon their siege engines, run for the Garonne. Crusaders follow, slaughter on the riverbank, bodies floating downstream. Montfort returns to Muret. His losses are minimal, maybe a dozen men. The Allies lose thousands. Peter is dead. The crusade is won. 5 years later, Montfort dies under Toulouse's walls, his skull crushed by a rock. The chronicler says women and girls operating the mangonel that killed him celebrated. The wolf is dead. Justice or tragedy, depending on whose side you're on. His body is buried at Carcassonne. Later moved to Montfort-l'Amaury, his tomb still stands. When Raymond dies, 1249 childless, everything goes to France. The Cathar castles, Montségur, Peyrepertus, Caribus, fall one by one. At Montségur in 1244, 200 Cathars are burned alive after refusing to recant. They walk into the flames, singing. The last active Cathar community. The faith goes underground. By 1300, it's extinct. The battlefield is farms and houses. The Garonne still flows. The Sodrun is a creek. There's a monument. There's memory. On September 12th, every year, some locals remember. Every 800 years, there's a bigger commemoration. Morale breaks armies faster than attrition. Leadership matters. Surprise matters. Killing the enemy commander matters most. Peter's death turns 8,000 men into a fleeing mob in minutes. Montfort understands this. He doesn't try to grind down the Allies. He punches through, kills the king, wins instantly. It's the opposite of siege warfare where patience wins. At Muret, speed wins. Shock wins. The willingness to risk everything on a single charge wins. The Albigensian Crusade extends French royal power, centralizes authority, crushes regional identity. It's a tool of state-building disguised as religious war. The same pattern repeats across medieval Europe. The Teutonic Knights in the Baltic, the Spanish Reconquista, the Hussite Wars. Faith justifies conquest. Conquest becomes centralization. Centralization becomes nation-states. By 1300, Occitan is a dialect, not a literary language. The troubadours are memory. The castles are French garrisons. Homogenization through force. Minerve, Lavaur, Toulouse, Muret, dozens of villages, mass burnings, executions, mutilations, starvation, displacement. And for what? The Cathars are gone. The Languedoc is French. The church has the Inquisition. Simon de Montfort has a tomb. Peter II has a tomb. The rest have mass graves or none. It's the most lopsided decisive victory of the High Middle Ages, according to Charles Oman. It's more complete than Hastings, where Harold died, but the battle lasted hours. More complete than Bouvines, where the Holy Roman Emperor escaped. At Muret, the king dies, the army disintegrates, the cause is lost all in 20 minutes. Aragonese knights in their mile, Toulousain militia in leather jacks, horses dying, wounded screaming, the river red. Montfort's men walk the field, finishing off survivors. Medieval battle has no Geneva Convention. Wounded enemies are threats. They're killed. Only nobles worth ransom are spared. Peter was worth everything, but Peter was dead. He's 43 years old. He has 5 more years to live. He'll die like his enemies, under siege, struck by a stone, but today he's untouchable. The Pope will confirm his titles. The French crown will back him. He's carved an empire out of heretic lands. And it only took 900 cavalry in 20 minutes. His kingdom will survive. His influence in France will not. He came to protect his vassals. He rejected defensive tactics. He wore borrowed armor. He died screaming his title. And with him died Aragonese dreams in Languedoc. Pierre de Vaux de Cernay praises God's judgment. The heretics and their protectors are punished. The Crusaders are vindicated. Guillaume de Puylaurens writes more carefully. He notes the slaughter. He questions the justice. Ramon Montaner mourns Peter as a hero. The chanson's second author rages at northern brutality. Truth is somewhere in the middle, but closer to Montaner and the chanson. Peter wasn't fighting for heresy. He was fighting for vassals, family, regional power. Montfort wasn't fighting for faith alone. He was carving fiefdoms. The crusade was politics in holy vestments. He reconstructs force sizes, casualty estimates, political motivations. He concludes, Muret is the decisive moment. Jonathan Sumption publishes The Albigensian Crusade in 2000. He traces ideology, violence, resistance, aftermath. He emphasizes the human cost. Martín Alvera Cabrer publishes Muret 1213 in 2008. He works Catalan and Aragonese archives. He reconstructs Peter's campaign, his motivations, his death. All three agree. Muret isn't just a battle, it's a hinge. Before and after are different worlds. France absorbs the South. Catharism dies. The Inquisition is born. Simon de Montfort becomes a name. His son, also Simon de Montfort, moves to England, becomes Earl of Leicester, rebels against Henry III, founds England's first parliament, dies at Evesham. The father conquers heretics. The son fights kings, both die violently. Medieval legacy is written in blood. The regional historians remember cultural extinction. All true, all incomplete. Muret is everything at once. A cavalry charge, a king's death, a crusade's climax, a region's end, 20 minutes that redirect centuries. The fields are still there. The town is bigger. The walls are gone. But if you know where to look, you can see it. The stream where Barras crossed, the ground where Foy's line stood, the riverbank where the militia died, the spot where Peter fell. It's quiet now, suburban, peaceful. But in 1213 it was screaming chaos. Horses, steel, blood, dust. And when it ended, the map was redrawn. Montfort doesn't win by attrition. He wins by shock, by killing the king, by breaking morale, by being willing to risk everything on a single moment. And that moment, crossing the Lauge with lances level and banners high, charging into an army 10 times his size, is the moment medieval warfare makes sense. One charge, one death, one victory. Everything changes. Modern historians say impossible, but thousands certainly died, mostly in the rout and river crossing. Montfort's losses are listed as minimal in all sources, perhaps 10 to 20 men. The disparity is staggering. It's not a battle, it's a massacre. And it's decisive. Peter dead, Raymond defeated. Montfort triumphant, France expanding, Aragon withdrawing, the South crushed. Allied soldiers, militia, Aragonese cavalry, mixed together, covered over, forgotten. Until modern construction crews in 1962 hit a burial pit while digging foundations. Hundreds of skeletons, armor fragments, weapon points, dated to early 1300s. They reburied them, put up a marker, closed the case. The dead of Muret stay buried, but they were there. Physical proof under suburban houses. The battle that rewrote Europe happened exactly where the chroniclers said, and the bodies prove the slaughter was real.